When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special edition of The Meta Show. Today is Wednesday, July the 16th, 2024. It is not Saturday. It is Wednesday. It is not 4 p.m. It's not 2000 Eve. It's 2300 Eve. And Dave Archer, the host of The Meta Show, is on the side seat because they broke the emergency glass and pulled Brisk, the executive producer, out of retirement to do a special edition of The Meta Show today. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Midweek Meta Show. We don't do these very often, but when we do them, it's for a very important reason. And that reason right now is Nullsec in crisis. Everybody's angry, and we're here to talk about it with two of our favorite people. Number one, Mr. Smasher Asher Elias, the Alliance Executive for Goonswarm Federation, the man, the myth, the legend, the head of the Imperium, and our favorite not Imperium Alliance leader of all time, Dark Shines from the Initiative, CSM 18 member himself, and then, of course, Dave Archer looking svelte in a jacket and tie today. Even Shines has a tie on. Guys, we are dressed up and ready to go tonight. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Hi, Asher.
Hey, I just want you to know I'm in morning wear, which is a very formal suit and attire. I know you can't see it. Yeah, it is.
Lovely.
I am looking fancy. Yeah.
That's it.
I have a pocket watch. I'm holding it right now. I'm actually hypnotizing you, so just keep that in mind.
Do you have a monocle? I hope it's the left one.
Oh, of course. So I'm not a heathen to put it in my right eye.
Very good. Very good. Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, why are we doing a Meta Show on Wednesday night? Why is Asher and Shines? Why are Asher and Shines here? Why is Dave not hosting the show? And who is this Brisk guy? Well, here's why we decided to do this show. In June, beginning of June, CCP launched the Equinox expansion. The Equinox expansion was billed as a new expansion for EVE Online that would provide the first major changes in Nullsec in close to half a decade. I think the last time we can say that there was a major expansion that dealt with Nullsec would probably have been the Citadel expansion in 2016. This is the biggest significant expansion that deals with what we're doing right now. Asher is not allowed to post on his own website. This is kind of frightening. Let's fix that. I'll go ahead and link this for you. Timed out.
Yeah.
So essentially, Equinox comes out, and for the most part, the sentiment immediately as it came out was kind of muted. Why was it kind of muted? Because everybody was kind of trying to figure out exactly what was happening. And there were some concerns about some of the things that were added to Equinox. There were some concerns about the power levels in particular that were going to make it very difficult for a lot of systems in Nullsec to be able to do the same things that they had done before. People were concerned about the changes to mining anomalies. They were concerned about the new ships. And everybody was cautiously looking at Equinox and how it was going to play out in Nullsec. And as time went on, the criticism got louder and louder and louder until this past week, when the criticism kind of spilled over and became a loud roar of disapproval from not just the Imperium, but from Init, from PandaFam, both Pandemic Horde and Fraternity, and even from some of the smaller alliances that are unaligned, saying all of the stuff in Equinox right now is not helping, and is likely going to make Nullsec a lot tougher to live there than it had been in the past. So I want to kind of talk about this and try to go over it, and then we're going to talk about the letter that Asher wrote earlier this week that became the most upvoted thing on the EVE subreddit in years. And then we're going to pivot and talk to Darkshines about the CSM, what they've been doing behind the scenes, and potentially what may or may not be happening based on the comments that were made by CCP Arcade publicly on that thread that Asher wrote, and what we may be hearing that we could share from our sources within the company. So anyway, to start this off, Asher, take me back to Equinox launches. What was it like in the immediate aftermath of it? And then what was the buildup towards when you ended up writing this open letter to CCP that seemed to take everybody by storm?
Well, I think the most important part is to go back beyond that and just talk about, I know most people here are inside baseball, they understand, but if you are a Nullsec player and you've only played in the last 5 years, and I say this in my letter, if you've only played in the last 5 years, you have never experienced a buff to the game. It has only been downhill. And I don't mean that in easygoing. I mean that it has all been negative. And so this was pitched as like, this is going to reinvigorate Nullsec.
Rejuvenate Nullsec.
Yes. This is going to be a really big change that'll be important. It'll be cool. It'll be great. We were told a lot of things. And then it comes out and it's like, I don't know. But it has, so much of it is in the details. Like maybe the numbers are really good and they don't tell us the numbers, which is very unfortunate, I think, because they took off the test environment, CC's closed, and then they release this and they say, here's some very general framework. And oh, by the way, to find this out, you need to permanently change your space. You get rid of the 6-month period. Well, a lot of people were hesitant to do that, obviously. And then we do it, we change, we look at the mining numbers. The mining numbers are atrocious. The changes to mining, you get less rocks overall in your space, by default, a lot less. And then the rocks you do get are tiny little rocks, which are tedious to mine. So they're bad. They're just bad. And then there are the ratting upgrades. And we look at those and we're like, well, hey, these seem to spawn less anomalies than before, even at the highest level compared to what we get now. This seems bad too. But then after testing, people notice, hey, like when this anom dies, you kill the last rat, it just respawns like that instantly. And your mind starts going, oh, wow, that's actually really, useful. You can farm that in such a way that it becomes much stronger than the previous one. So even though you can only have this kind of system in a couple spaces in your region, a couple systems in your region, it has you're like, well, we could build around this. Like there is an upside, right? And so someone like Norris, I think he's the one who went first to CCP and asked, hey, is this intended? Is this the mechanic? And they go, yeah. And so once we heard that, we said, hey,
that's great. Wonderful.
Yeah. People start injecting Stormbringers. Like, well, this is, I'm going to adapt to the new meta, and I'm going to inject, my character into Stormbringer, my characters into Stormbringers, and I'm going to get going. And then after a couple of weeks, CCP says, oh no, that you remember when we said it was? It's not. It's actually not. And I think that in particular, the communication has been poor, and then having communication and then just turning it around after saying what it was really like the straw that broke the camel's back. The anger just started overflowing. People were like, they had been given a bill of sale that almost nothing came through, but there was one good thing about it, one good thing. And even that, and by the way, the changes that were made to the routing systems, someone like me who will spin Ishtars, they're not useful for me but it offered something to someone. That one good thing though was then taken away, and people were just like, listen, I am so tired of this. I'm so tired of being given something and then having it taken away and then losing more. And this whole patch was just emblematic of that. We were given something, it was taken away, it's worse off than it was before. And it felt like that, they had a problem they wanted to solve. They wanted less jump bridges, and they went about it in the most convoluted way possible while also ruining everything else. And so when, we started talking amongst ourselves, first in the Imperium, then Shines and I were talking, then Gobbins reached out to me, then Norris reaches out. You got the feeling from there was a groundswell. Everyone was upset and they wanted their voice heard.
Shines, when did you guys, I mean, obviously you were on the CSM, so you saw this coming. When the numbers came out and everything changed, what was it like internally within it? What did you guys start talking about? What was your concerns? Was it similar to what Asher was saying, or did you guys have your own special issues that you were concerned about?
I mean, on patch day, I need to be a little bit careful what I do and don't say. So
I know.
I'm sorry
It's
if I'm
the
vague.
joys of being on the CSM. You don't remember what is public and what's not.
Yeah. I know from an init point of view, well, even before that, like for months, I have said basically publicly and also at the CCP that this patch has the potential to be one of the best patches in recent EVE history, but it's all going to depend on the tuning. And if the tuning is done well, it'll be great. If it's done wrong, it's going to be a complete failure. So patch day hits, not really looking too good, at least within initiative. We were a bit like annoyed over the power levels and stuff. But to be fair, CCP listened when I raised those concerns and when others raised those concerns. We got some fixes on that. We started upgrading systems. We done some mining systems, some routing systems, and then, much like what Asher said, we discovered that the routing was really, really good. The mining not so good. You could pick your own ore types again, but there was a lot of complaints from people who mine. I don't really mine myself, but just overall kind of disappointment with the numbers of the belts. The routing stuff though was like top tier, so everyone was happy with that. And then yeah, just kind of like last week, I think it went downhill with the patch on the Friday, which basically fixed or changed the spawn rates on anomalies. And yeah, pretty much like what Asher said, that just everyone was just fed up at that point. So
in addition, so on prior to last weekend, which was the 12th, my birthday, CCP put out a
Happy 65th birthday, Brisk.
Thank you. Nice try. I'm only 47, people. I'm not that old. I know I look old. Yeah, really. I'm only 47. CCP puts out a director's letter in July 2024. It was on the 8th of July, which was that Monday, I believe, or it was either the Friday before that Monday, but it was that the same week as they made the change to nerf the Stormbringer ratting. And I went through this on Rampage, but I'll go through it again here just briefly. I felt like this kind of missed the mark. The letter kind of missed the mark because it did not. It talked about in a very positive way a lot of things that I think the community still felt was pretty ambivalent. For example, they talked about sovereignty in space, that we're not just about holding territory, and that we're making this, we see immense potential. These tools are becoming the core of how you manage your claimed space, and ongoing rejuvenation. That word rejuvenation, that was one of those things where a lot of people said, that word, you keep using it, I don't think it means what you think it means. Okay. And they kept talking about it, and we're all looking around trying to figure out where's the rejuvenation, because the way that this expansion kind of did what it did, and I think I agree with Shines, I think largely their goal was, the desire was to find a way to reduce the number of Ansiblex jump bridges, among other things, Sino beacons and those types of things in space, by making it more difficult to have everything in every system. And that's fine. I don't think anybody's going to complain about that, even me, because what I had always said about jump gates, if they were going to nerf jump gates, do it in a way that it doesn't impact the average line member, and that's how they did it. This lets people decide where they want to put them, and make sure that the systems that are the ones that we want to live in are the ones that have them, because they're the ones that have to deal with it. So I felt like that was okay. I wasn't going to complain about it. But the changes to the mining anomalies, the changes to the combat sites, the changes to the iHub upgrades and everything, just were so significant, and not in a good way, that everybody starts looking at this like this is a nerf. And to Shines' point, and I think it's important to reiterate this, almost every major update from Citadel on either had nothing really that was focused specifically on Nullsec, or it was a nerf. Whether it was the reduction in mining from Rorquals during the Rorqual era, when that was great, they slowly dialed those back, reduced the number of the respawn rate for mining. They nerf Titans, they nerf supers, they nerf capital ships in general. You have scarcity, you have blackout, you have all of the different things that we complain about that essentially were all targeted at Nullsec, the ESS, the dynamic bounty system, things like that were designed, or at least they were pitched to us as being, this is for your benefit because it's going to make more people get into space and more people are going to do things. And the result is, after all those changes, we're sitting in an era of EVE where the two major powers are completely stagnant. They're in their areas of space. They aren't fighting because the big massive battles between Titans and Supers that were the hallmark of the last war are impossible to have now because you can't replace any of the assets that you lose, so no one's going to take the chance to lose them because of scarcity. And so then you get in here and we get told this is rejuvenating Nullsec, and everybody is under the impression that that means that things are going to get better. We're going to be able to make money. The cost of ships is going to go down. And then the result was the exact opposite. So I think a lot of players, especially line members in some of these groups, and I want to talk to Dave because Dave's an FC, and I know he's got a special, like he's got a different view on this than me as a space person, a space impotent person, but also mainly a line member, that I was looking for something that was going to make this better for the average player, and I did not see that. In fact, it was the opposite. And then again, especially after put this post out, they keep talking about rejuvenating Nullsec. I don't feel rejuvenated. I don't know if anybody feels rejuvenated. I feel exasperated, but I'm not rejuvenated. And then they nerf the only thing that everybody liked after they told us that it was intended that way. And that just, I think it just kind of spilled over. Dave, what are you hearing from the other FCs about this? Is it doing what, at least what they wanted it to do, which was to get more people in space fighting each other? Has that happened?
So they added stuff to cause that, but then they don't seem to get the connection between people out in space crabbing and stuff like that and PvP, because they added the ESSs. They've now made it so ratting is nearly impossible, so why would I go for an ESS? They've added all the Poco stuff and all that, but I could go for them, but why would people care about it if they can't use their space to rat? Making space, it's like when they made it so supers were not viable to run havens and stuff. They then go, oh, less stuff is dying because there's less stuff to kill. There's no point taking a fleet to hostile space if you're just going to burn around, shoot a skyhook, and run off with their stuff. And there's no chance of them coming because they don't care, because their members don't care. So unhappy line members, them not logging in and crabbing and stuff, means they're not logged in when you take a fleet there. You can't kill them. And if you attack Summit, they're not there. They're off playing another game, and they don't want to join a fleet because they're angry at the game. So what they're essentially doing is making more stuff for FCs and fleets to do whilst removing the people that are going to join the fleet to do it.
One of the things that I thought was most surprising, or at least that I think is a highlight of how CCP missed the mark on the new, what are they, sovereignty hubs, I guess is what they're calling them. Instead of infrastructure hubs, they're sovereignty hubs now, is the lack of people switching over from the old system to the new system. In fact, Asher was telling me, and Asher, if you want to talk about it a little bit, it's become the meta in Nullsec. If you want to go fuck with somebody's space, you go and toast their iHub because it forces them to switch over to the new one, to the sovereignty hub, and that tends to brick their space.
Yeah, and that seems counterintuitive. Like, oh, we're going to force you to upgrade to the new upgraded, rejuvenated system, right? Yeah, and so people immediately dove into this, like, wow, we can make them go to the new system 6 months ahead of time. That would really ruin them. And if that's the attitude, then like, you know, people respond to incentives, right? And if people are saying, hey, our incentive here is to force them to upgrade, it says something about the upgrades, right? And so
Exactly.
that's you're right. That is that I think the proof in the pudding why these are not working and why they're not desired.
Exactly. When your upgrade is what you do to somebody else to fuck with them, I don't think you really can call it an upgrade. So all of this happens. So Asher, why did you decide to write this letter?
Well, we had a lot of discussion. Like I said, we started discussing amongst Imperium people, and then people outside started reaching out to me, and it becomes really clear. People message me all the time. I was logged off Jabber and I logged back in, and I've got just a bunch of messages waiting for me. Right, that's just like how it goes. But they want to share their feelings and opinions with you, and so I feel like I get a pretty good pulse on how people are feeling, and it's overwhelmingly negative, right? People are, and not only negative, it's apathetic and it's tired, and that's when it's really bad. When someone's screaming at you, at least they probably care enough about it to scream at you because they want you to do something different or be better. If they're just like, whatever, just whatever, that's when you know it's toast, right? And that's what I was getting is people just I'm tired, boss, right? like it was just like that. And so I wanted to write a letter because I wanted to convey, like, we really like you, we like the product, we like Eve, we like what it stands for, we like what it can be. This is important to us. So that's the first message to get across, because if you just come out and say, like, here's a list of demands, you're terrible, right? That'll never be received. Everyone's human. So you need to explain first, here are the stakes. This is something we really care about. This is something we like. And then explain, here are the problems, and then explain why are these problems, and we would like you to fix them. And so I didn't want to come out there with, like, here are the 10 things we hate, and here are the 5 demands we want you to implement, because I don't think that would have been received well, at CCP. And I want them to fix the game because I really love this game. It's a really important game, and I think obviously everyone here does. So that was a really really important part to me.
All of our people who do not subscribe are getting stuck with ads.
No,
So
yeah,
we can chat a little bit while we're waiting for the ads to go down.
sure.
But Dave, have you seen anything redeeming about this at all?
No. The
Nothing?
negatives are outweighing the positives by a mile.
All right.
It adding to what I said before, people can't make ISK in this new system, which then goes all the way back round to nobody's going to want a PvP because they can't make ISK. You need ISK.
Shines, is there anything in here that you're seeing that you think is positive potentially?
Yeah, so I mean, just to play devil's advocate on a couple of points, right? So obviously, I was quite unhappy with the patch with the figures that come out. I've been fairly public about that. I've let CCP know as well. But there are a couple of things. So first, on the ratting, it's not that you can't make ISK, it's just that the ratting upgrades are not any better than they were previously. So like the spawns are still roughly what they used to be in the old system. They're just not as good as they were when it first came out. Yeah. So you can still make ISK. Like, I mean, the ESSs and Fountain are still up there, for example. But people are definitely pissed off that that such a good change got iterated on very quickly, while bad changes like the mining stuff did not get iterated on quickly.
And that's a very important point that Shines just made. And that's one of the reasons why this feels bad. Because for 2 months, folks have been saying, hey, we kind of don't like the way that this is working. It's not working great. And we haven't heard much from CCP in response to those concerns. But after asking about the Stormbringer ratting and being told, no, that's working as intended, man, they quickly nerfed the shit out of that. So feels bad.
With that being said, in CCP's defense, and this is not, I suppose defense is the wrong word, my understanding, or I can understand to a degree why people might be cautious changing Nullsec. This is going to be a little bit controversial, but there is no other player type in the game will use and abuse and min-max the fuck out of a game like Nullsec will, right?
Thank you.
So
Correct.
there
But
is.
isn't that what they should expect? Should they not expect that when they're doing
well,
this, that we're going to do that? I mean, they went out. This was one thing that I got yelled at by from some folks that were mad about the communications from CCP because we never were told the numbers ahead of time. And even when they would do Twitch streams or they would do commercials for the new expansion, the numbers that they would show on the screen were fake. They were completely not right. They were like exponentially wrong. Like it would say there's 140,000 power in this area and the real system had like 200 or something. And that's hyperbole, but that's kind of what it was. And I told everybody from the beginning, I said, look, CCP's not dumb. They understand the way Nullsec operates. And if they had leaked anything about any of this stuff, it would be gone.
Yeah.
It would be gone. Everybody would know it instantly. And the bottom line there was they had to keep it secret, at least for a little while, so that everybody had the same opportunity to talk and see it at the same time, and nobody had an advantage.
So playing devil's advocate, though, you can see if you look at scarcity, what came before scarcity, the Oracle era, where Nullsec was extremely vibrant. Minerals were everywhere. This is something CCP obviously wanted to get back to, but they had to do it in such a way that didn't create Oracle era Mark II, which would then have resulted once again in another scarcity patch afterwards because they would have had to balance things. So it's a little bit daunting, to be fair to CCP. It's a little bit daunting to have to try and find that balance. So obviously, the mark was missed on the first round. In regards the mining and obviously the subsequent ratting change, but there are other good things in the patch. Like it's very easy to be negative about some of them, and rightly so. Like I have been as well. But if you look at the carrier change, the conduits, the MJDs and stuff like that, the Metanox, like the Metanox is a fantastic change. It's something that I'm so happy to see back in the game because it really opens up the playing field for people who aren't in the biggest alliances in the game. Obviously, it benefits everybody, like the big alliances as well, but it gives smaller groups as well and mid-sized groups that income that was missing before. And then obviously the Doomsday buff. I know some were really happy about it, others not so much. Personally, I was very happy about it. So, and then the new ships as well, right? Like the Squall, the Avalanche, like that Avalanche looks fucking amazing. So there is quite some good stuff in it, but unfortunately, everything around Null Sov specifically just missed the mark. I think the mechanics, the idea behind everything is good. I think it has really good potential. And I think we're starting, or will hopefully be starting to see that over the next few weeks. But yeah, definitely, unfortunately, missed the mark on the first go around.
So Asher, back on your. I'm going to go back to the letter. So one of the things you talked about was the main issue being that CCP doesn't want to explain, or at least has not decided in their own head, whether they want systems to be broad or tall. What did you mean by that?
Well, I mean, there's two basic ways to organize. You can have a broad, which is resources are spread out, but they're pretty consistent. And so that encourages you to spread out because you want to get as many of those resources as possible. Tall means that the resources are not spread out, they are concentrated. And so in that case, you want to be in a smaller area, gathering those resources. Both have benefits and disadvantages, but it seems like they don't know which one they want to do. Do they want broad or do they want tall? You can't be broad and tall. Like that would be, I mean, I guess you could, but generally you pick one. You pick one, and people do that. And so when you saw this, the Stormbringer, Thunderchild kind of instant Machariel, Smart Bombs, whatever, instant respawn routing. You're like, okay, this is building tall, and it made sense because you looked at the numbers with the new sob hubs. Many systems are just going to have to be nothing. They're literally there to power your other systems. They're wastelands. They're worthless essentially. You know, they're systems to fly through. They're the flyover states of EVE Online, right? So that was tall, but when they took this away, we were like, well, now we're neither broad or tall. We're just nothing. We're just wasteland everywhere. So that's what my point was, is that they don't seem to have a good idea on, or at least they're not showing us on what they actually want. I prefer tall because I think that having people gathered around in one area is good because it opens up other areas for people to move into. And that is one of my important points, is I think when you encourage broad, it leads to the kind of system we have now with rental empires and people spread out all over the map. And you got Shines, you got us. We are by far the most compact group in space, right? Init is a very big alliance now, and they're living in essentially 1.5 regions, basically, right? And then Imperium is the largest, or one of the largest, certainly, and we're in 4. And you have other alliances that are much less dense, and I don't think that's good for the game. I think that's a bad thing. And so we prefer the tall idea because we want to leave room for other people to come dip their toes in, and because you fight those other people later on.
So, this is the map of the system map that you can see. That's the standard daily sob map. So the neutral states listed here is Fountain. That is mostly Init. Down in the bottom right and the bottom center is the Imperium. That's mostly Quirius Delve, Paragon Soul, and Esoteria, which is where some of the folks that Dracaris and those guys live in the catch area. Then up on this side, you've got all of the Panda Fam systems, which are huge. They have almost a dozen systems, from Tenal all the way down to Innsmother, from Declan all the way to Cobalt Edge. They've got a ton of space. So what are we talking? What's left for the rest of Null is just this area in the southeast that's kind of a no man's land because of the previous way that we set that we had tried to put things together when Shines and others had done this.
I also hate this map because it implies that there's a more parity than there is.
Right.
The amount of space taken up by on the map is not indicative of the amount of systems.
Right.
The purple systems are just incredibly more dense. There's you look at the area where Init is and the Imperium, and there's a lot of empty space in there. And so I think this map implies something that isn't true.
Right.
I'm gonna have to form a fucking coalition with my alt alliance just to get our name on this map, I think.
There you go. You got to get bigger. There you go. Call it something.
The other thing about what you're seeing here is a lot of those neutral states that were in the bottom right that were set up because we had an agreement not to mess with them.
Right.
Now that's over, are having to, in a way, declare themselves one way or another anyway, because they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, especially if alliances have to expand their territory to be able to fit their members in.
Yep.
So a lot of them down there, you'll see, I think Triumphant is down there and still marked as a neutral state. They are so very not neutral. So it's causing people to have to declare.
Init is also marked as a neutral state right now. I mean, we're not neutral.
Not really.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like they're living in an area that was set up for neutral states, but those neutral states are being forced to, pick a side because otherwise they're just going to get absolutely smashed when alliances need more room, which isn't good for fostering new groups.
But what would be nice about being able to build tall would be that, like the taller you can build, the more you can pull back your borders. Or if you don't pull back your borders, the weaker they become, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, that's kind of the big thing as well, because if you build tall, as you said, your members aren't on the outer edges doing PvE, so your system is weaker. It then allows the little guy that wants to start their new alliance or start their new coalition to be able to take some of your space to do that. If we don't stop.
Dunk Dinkle said it best. He says he warned everyone a long time ago, and he did. Dunk, when he was on the CSM, this was CSM 14. It was 4 CSMs ago. His big point was, do not weaponize boredom against the players to balance the game. And I've said that to them a dozen times if I've said it once, and it's one of these things where it feels like it keeps coming back. So Asher, back to Asher writes his letter. The letter is very well received. Like I said, it has over, and I'll throw it up on the screen one more time. It has almost 2,000 upvotes. This is the most upvoted post on our Eve this year. It's the most upvoted, pretty much the most upvoted post in the last 2 or 3 years. And Gobbins made a comment saying on behalf of Pandemic Horde, he supports the letter. We invited Gobbins to do the show tonight, but he was not available. This is main addition, in addition to the letter stuff, is that the balance of overshadowing the fact that almost every single aspect of this expansion was released filled with bugs. And nothing like closing a test server and then having your customers beta test your code live. That's a legitimate complaint because there was no testing of this in any environment other than live. And that, when you do that, and I understand why they did it. Again, like as we said, Nullsec is going to be completely ready to min-max this from the very beginning. It's just rough. Yes, this will be available to watch later. It'll also be available on YouTube tomorrow and then on our podcast later in the week. So Gobbins made that post. He's got over 1,000 upvotes on that, which demonstrates that people liked it. Then you've got Naraus made a similar post. Naraus said, Fraternity echoes the same sentiment with Asher's take on empowering e-players to make more stories that are memorable. CCP failed their promise about rejuvenating Nullsec when the players got no choice but only compromises. Okay? And then BJK, who some of the guys in the chat were talking about earlier, said the same thing. And this is from the perspective of smaller alliance. They're very hesitant to enable the new SOV because the entry requirements for holding SOV are so much higher than they were before, yet they're not making as much money as they could have been otherwise. So even for the smaller groups that were a problem, that Nullsec was a problem for entry. There was big barriers to entry because the big guys would stomp on any little guy trying to take over area, especially the PanFam guys who wanted rental space. Imperium doesn't do that, and it doesn't do that, but the PanFam folks do. It was always trouble for the small guys to get involved, and now even the small guys are saying an expansion that was designed to kind of help us with things like the moon drills that provide passive income so they don't have to have active miners on all of their moons, things like that. It's still harder to get started in Null for these guys. So in the end, who did this benefit? And the answer is nobody can tell. And this is not one of those things where I feel like there was a common philosophy within CCP that if everybody's complaining, and by everybody I mean Horde is complaining and Init's complaining and Goons are complaining, if both sides in the bipolar world are complaining, well, we did something right. But the problem is it's not partisan. This is not a partisan thing. It is not, we like this because PanFam doesn't like it, or PanFam likes it because Goons don't like it, although there was some of that in the beginning, but it quickly, I think, dissipated. Everybody doesn't like this.
I want to comment on that. I think,
please.
So first off, the response was like pretty overwhelming. I got a lot of DMs, people saying, hey, you really, said what I was feeling. And if you read the comments, they're overwhelmingly positive. And someone told me it was the most upvoted post on the subreddit this decade. I didn't look at that, but maybe.
It's close. It's not all time, but it's close. It's in the top 20 all time, I think now.
Yeah. One thing I did enjoy, and this is an aside, it's not really important, but on Reddit you get these elite PvP types who are they will come in and they'll crap on Goons or they'll crap on Horde, and normally the other side will help upvote them, will help boost that comment because temporary allies. But there were a few in this thread who tried to do the same thing, and then they got the all of Nullsec combined hammer of downvotes, and I'm like, you thought it worked. It doesn't work like you thought it did. When we're all together, you have no power here.
Negative 45, negative 29, negative 27, negative 34. I mean, these guys got downvoted into oblivion. It's pretty funny.
Brisk on the "I'm doing my part" meme right there.
Always.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was looking through the Eve Reddit before we started the show today, and there's a lot of posts now that we've stopped paying as much attention to the Reddit on this topic. From people that don't live in Nullsec saying we're complaining too much, and a lot of them are wormholes. Like last time, I can't actually remember when wormholes had a nerf to their money-making ability.
They very, very recently. That's not a line
2
you want
weeks
to go
ago.
for. Yeah.
Okay.
You
They
wanna-
got a
2 weeks
nerf
ago,
in
was
this-
it?
They got a nerf in this
Yeah.
patch.
The amount
Yeah.
of not paying attention to wormholes I do. It's great.
I
They
mean,
should only
wormholes,
be used for
wormholes
trans-
are great for a lot of things, but they did get nerfed, yes.
And that's part of the thing, at least for the wormholers, those guys traditionally are always left behind. They're always forgotten about. But when CCP wakes up and remembers them, they tend to fuck them over. So it's like, at least with Null, and then the problem with that is then typically they don't have the numbers to make a big enough voice to be able to get stuff fixed. And it was great when they had, Mark Resurrectus on the CSM, because there was this wormholer that was right there and was willing to talk and had the experience. But he was so good at what he did, now he works for the company. So they're kind of stuck now. They don't have anybody that's outside of Big Papa CCP to take their message. And the result was, as soon as he's gone, boom, they get hit with the biggest nerf they've ever had. And feels bad. Feels bad for the poor wormholers. They're not happy. Now, I will say this. We waited and were wondering how long it was going to take for CCP to respond to Asher's letter, and I will give them credit. It only took a couple of days, which is not bad. And people might say, brisk couple of days. It took him days after 2,000 people, 2,000 upvotes and all the Sturm and Drang and everything. It's summertime in Iceland. The fact that they even responded at all is surprising to me. And I was on the CSM for 4 years. We worked with the company for a very long time. July and August, not the easiest months to talk to anybody at the company. And I give them credit that they were able to get a response out as quickly as they did. So CCP Arcade, who is pretty senior, this is not some random GM, he used to be, but he's not anymore, not some random guy. This is a pretty senior guy who came out and said, we want to acknowledge the concerns expressed in this and other threads, because after Asher put this post up, oh my God, every day, every other day was another 14-paragraph essay from somebody bitching about something. Even the ones that were making fun or pissed at Asher about it, they were still writing 15-page essays. So, Asher, you kind of started
the essay meta.
Essay meta. That's it. They said they want to thank us for that. We know everyone has the best wishes for the game at heart and appreciate the honesty and feedback from the threads and then by the CSM, which we're going to get to with Shines in a second. We've been monitoring and discussing within CCP and talking with the CSM to plan our next steps. We hope to have a more formal communication come out within a week, but did not want to wait for that without acknowledging this thread and overall player sentiment. All right, so this was 2 days ago. That would be Monday of this week. Asher's post went up on Friday. So it's kind of one of these things where they move pretty quickly, and we've still got a couple days left in this week before their time is up and they miss their deadline. I don't know if they're going to get a chance to get a bigger post out here in a week, but the fact that at least they made this acknowledgement and they're talking to CSM, that gives me at least some kind of optimism that we'll see some kind of a change soon that will be positive. Now, Shines, the CSM is generally quiet on Reddit and quiet on the forums. When this stuff went down on Friday and Asher's post comes out and everything, what did you guys start? I mean, tell me what you did. Tell me what the feeling was within the CSM that you can share. Obviously, you can't share what CCP said, but you can share what you thought. How did it feel? Like, what was the general tenor of the CSM when this stuff was going down?
I mean, like, the change was a bit unfortunate that it happened on a Friday. Obviously, we were pissed off, I suppose, but to be fair to CCP, when we raised the issue with them, they did respond. Obviously, you just showed the response to Asher's Reddit thread there. Ad break.
Yeah,
it happens.
Let's give them a minute.
At the end of the day,
you can teach
we
me
don't control the ads. We never have controlled
the
the ads.
Wait, how do you not know how to tie a tie?
I can tie a tie, just not like one of those fancy ones.
Oh no, I just do it the way I used to do it at school.
You can only do a half Windsor.
The fuck is a half Windsor?
Working on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just tie a tie. You know, like,
I don't know if you can get that on screen, Brisk, but if you can.
I just grabbed it. So here it is. So, I mean, for those of you who have ads, sorry, subscribe. Otherwise, here is what we're looking at now. So Asher's post in the first 48 hours had 659,000 views. That's a lot. That is quite a bit. And that tells me that not only was there engagement and people coming back to seeing what they were writing, but a ton of people that don't even play Eve, that aren't involved in this, were reading it too. And it was getting passed around in places and people were seeing it. So that to me is pretty significant, not gonna lie.
So just a minor interruption. In general is giving out to me because you guys are all wearing ties and I'm not. I'm
He
in
has
a
a
fucking
tie
t-shirt.
on.
So I have a tie on,
Show them the
but
See?
yeah,
beard's
so
just
He's wearing a
anyway.
black shirt and a black tie, guys. Do not give him. We gave him a hard time ahead of the show, and he took advantage of that to make sure that, boom, he had his thing. So
anyway, so what happened basically is, I mean, CCP did respond, and we could tell pretty much straight away on Monday because, I mean, it was the weekend, right? So to be fair, when they came in on Monday, you could tell it was kind of battle stations. And then the response came out. They pretty much started engaging with the CSM later that day, once I guess they had a chance to review everything themselves. And yeah, I mean, you could kind of tell things were changing, right?
So you've been in the room, you've had these conversations, you've talked to CCP Rattati, you've talked to other folks within the company. Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? Do you think they're on the right track? Are they listening? How do you feel right now?
So there's a couple of feelings, right? Number one is frustration, which is thankfully easing
That's
off
fair.
now. Frustration because, like I said earlier, this had the potential to be a great patch from the start, but the tuning just wasn't right. And that's unfortunate, but look, things happen, mistakes were made, and we're like getting ready to fix those now. So we had a meeting with CCP today. That was after discussions that were had obviously yesterday as well, on Monday. And it was a fairly big meeting today. I can't go into the details on it, but I can confirm that there will be at least one set of iteration changes happening this week, which I am personally very happy about. And I think a lot of people will be fairly happy with them as well. So at some point in the next few days, there will be iteration number one. And then there will be information, I think, coming with that. And then further iterations throughout the next few weeks. I think the, what we heard from CCP was that, like Asher's letter, for example, was mentioned. Obviously, the CSM is giving a lot of feedback, but it's not just the CSM. You've got like a massively upvoted post on Reddit. Like obviously, there's a lot of, it's not just somebody whining on Reddit. There's a lot of, it was clear like a lot of the community was behind it. You've got people very vocal on the Eve Discord, on the Eve forums, and several other feedback inputs that that CCP have. So my impression is that they have heard the feedback. They are looking to correct it because obviously they don't want everyone pissed off. Nobody wants to be pissed off here. We just want to reach that point where where the players are happy and where CCP feels like it's not going to completely fuck the game either. But yeah, like I don't know, the meeting today was very positive. So I'm happy. I'm a lot less stressed than I was at the start of the week. I'll put it that way.
Good. I mean, from my perspective, and this is not my first rodeo when it comes to Eve pitchfork campaigns against the company. I've led a few myself. I found that when we are tempered and are willing to at least talk to them and give them the chance to fix things, it's much, much better received within the company than if we were to start calling them names, start screaming, yelling at them, saying it's awful, you guys all suck, we hate you, everybody unsub. That's when they start throwing the walls up and they don't want to listen. But I think Asher knocked this out exactly the right way. Starts with an open letter saying, we love you guys, we love the game, can we fix this? It's great. So I'm pleased with that. Asher, how do you feel? I mean, it seems like we're making progress. Is that how it feels to you?
Go ahead, Chance.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, I forgot to finish that one point I was making. A lot of the frustration comes from the fact that, like, the people who are making these, like the Eve devs themselves, you know, they're a very cool bunch of people who want and are very passionate about the game being good. And it's frustrating to see kind of some negative, like a lot of negativity around when it should be a very positive thing, right? So that can be very, like, that leads to a lot of frustration. But like I said, hopefully that's all changing now. So
yeah, I got the impression that they felt like this was a positive patch, like internally. That's was the impression that I got. And then so I feel like maybe they were a little blindsided by the reception. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I've heard.
I have to agree with you on that, because I mean, the way that they wrote, and we alluded to it at the top of the show, the director's letter did not seem to indicate, or at least they didn't really mention anything in there about how angry the community is or how disappointed the community was, because it sounded like it was a pretty solid note. And to me, I thought that was kind of odd, because it was not what I was hearing from your average line member. They just were not happy with it. And the company did not seem to have noticed that. So I'm glad that at least they figured it out. And I mean, they may have been blindsided, but sometimes it's better to get blindsided and fix it than to not do that at all. Now, I know some people have said, why didn't they test more? Why didn't they do more? I mean, one of the problems, this is in a problem that has been part of Eve for the longest time, is there's some things that you just can't test on the test server. That you need to have the live environment where people are pushing things to the max in significant numbers to be able to test certain things. Not everything. There's some things that should have gotten caught, like the fact that when you try to put a 500 MN micro warp drive on the Avalanche, it says this doesn't fit. This is the wrong one. And then you go to try to put a 10,000 MN afterburner or something. It says, well, this doesn't fit it either. There were little bugs that should have been addressed early that didn't get caught. But then the big things that we would have min-maxed from the beginning, like how the moon drills work and how the skyhooks work and where things go, that makes sense to me that they'd waited until it was on live to test. And yeah, that feels bad, and it sucks, especially when stuff doesn't work when it's supposed to. But there are some times when that's just the nature of the beast. Now, I mean, I'll tell you this, from my perspective, and I am not an Alliance executive. I'm not Asher. I'm not on the CSM anymore. And I'm not a talk show host like our Dave Archer anymore. I'm really just, I play Eve and I do stuff within the Alliance and I do stuff within my corporation. From my perspective, the line members have been upset about this from the beginning. And to the extent that CCP wasn't aware of ahead of time that people were unhappy, that worries me, because that tells me that they're not paying attention. Like they missed it. But the fact that they were willing to listen, to see this, to not react in well, you guys just don't know what you're talking about, or, go out on stage and say, well, don't you have phones, and have one of those types of moments where they kind of just piss on our complaints. They didn't do that. So that's good. Now, I think the proof is in the pudding, though. We got to see what these changes are going to be at the end of the week. I'll take Shines at face value because I like him and he's a smart guy. And if he says that this is okay and that things are going to look a little bit better, then I'm going to say, all right, I'll take that at face value, and I will be cautiously optimistic that we'll get a good change. But I've also been here and seen it when they fucked it up. So
I do think it's a little better than okay. Like, I don't want to undersell it. I also don't want to overhype it.
Well, never overhype it. So underselling it is better than anything. So, all right, gentlemen, we are kind of at the end of the show. We're at the hour mark. This is a special Wednesday edition. I don't want to keep you guys longer, so I want to go around the room if anybody has any last minute things that they want to say. Dave, is there anything left on this subject that you want to get in before we get out of here?
Not that I can think of.
All right, Shines.
Yeah, like you've touched on it there, and I just want to mention it again. or mention it to start with. I suppose like feedback is important, but it has to be constructive feedback. Like there's no point like calling for people to be fired or cursing people to the high heavens and stuff. You like, who wants to help somebody that's just sitting there insulting them, right? So do what Asher did, like type out the type out your reasoning, type out why it's why something needs to change, and be constructive about it. So
100%. Asher, any parting words or comments?
Yeah, if you're grilling a ribeye, you want to really bring it up to medium temp, not medium rare, because some of the connective tissue will melt. It'll taste better.
I don't like that.
Listen, it's the truth. You're going to learn. I'm going to teach you.
Okay. I will learn by the numbers. You will teach me. Okay, I got it.
Actually,
I'm always medium rare guy myself. That's just how I've been. So
I've one
Dave,
last question.
Go
Chris.
ahead. Sorry, Shrines. Go ahead.
Why is Asher sitting outside a wormhole?
I did that to fuck with the wormholers on purpose.
Okay.
Oh,
So
there he is.
Asher, are you a wormholer?
Listen, that is my escape plan. Like I have all this Imperium that embezzled, and I am ready to go in the wormhole. You'll never see me again.
Right. Asher used to be an FC, so now he can be a wormholer, right?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Used to be an FC. Dave, when is the meta show this weekend? What are you guys talking about?
Haven't got that far yet because I was going to talk more about this, but we've covered it today. So
there's always more to talk about. We might have Shines, but there might have
there should be a CCP update, shouldn't there?
You could do a deep dive into the wormhole changes.
Yeah.
Get the wormhole.
We'll need to do some research.
The second I read the word wormhole in any patch, I'm like, unless it changes the way I travel through them, don't care.
Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for a very special midweek meta show. I am Brisk Rubal. I am not the host of the meta show. I am the executive producer, but they do let me out every once in a while. Dave Archer is the host of the meta show. Dark Shines of CSM 18 and the Initiative, and Asher Elias, Alliance Executor and former FC for the Goonswarm Federation. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We will see you next time this Saturday for the main meta show, and you stay classy.